All right, you should be ready to go.
Right, let me know if I'm... Hi, folks. Can you hear me now?
It'll take a minute for someone to get on there, though.
Well, can you hear me?
Let me pull it up.
Test, see if you guys can hear me. Look at this. I'm only 2 minutes late. Quick response here. Somebody just said I can't hear. I've got sound on here.
It works.
So Andy's just told me no volume. Oh, okay. I don't know I don't know how to put the volume up, but something you guys need to know is make sure the volume's up your end. Anyway, I'm going to continue now until somebody complains they can't hear. Right?
Cheers, David.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Andy. I'll talk to you later. Okay. Excuse me for one moment while I go and shout for a cup of coffee. My mouth is drier than the Sahara Desert. Hold on. I will be back. G, I'm broadcasting now, but my mouth is dry as a bone. Can I have a nice big cup of milk coffee? Okay, I'm back. I guess I've been so nervous about getting live on here and getting all the things right, because Andy's usually the whiz kid at this, and he's schooled me on doing it. Now, why was it necessary to me to go live solo? Well, Andy has got some family health problems, and they are putting a pretty big draw on his time. So I want to say two things here. Look out for Andy's and you'll see how I'm normally without Andy to help me go through this. This is my brain thing here, but make sure you go and check Andy's posts and subscribe and like and comment so that it helps him through this hopefully short-lived problem here. But don't expect a video every week like he normally puts out. Anyway, look at this. I've got I've got a whole load of comments here. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Now I won't get into this deal yet until the coffee arrives. But what I'm going to start off with is the cylinder head challenge, and it's so far it's going well. There's a lot of people. Yeah. 91471 commented, "Hello, David. Can't hear you. No volume." Can you make sure the volume's up your end? And it could be I need to talk louder. Let me get closer to the microphone here. Is that any better? Let me know about that. Also, I'll pull the whole system closer. Now let's try that. Yep, good. Brian, thank you for that comment. Brian's commented, member only. Brian commented, I can hear fine. Right. Volume is fine in Scotland. Now that's good because I love Edinburgh. You live anywhere near Edinburgh. If I was going to move and live in Scotland, Edinburgh would be where I would go to. It's a beautiful city. I've seen the the March of the Colors of when they all march down the streets playing the bagpipes. Boy, I tell you what, if you've never been to Scotland and seen that, it's spine tingling. The bagpipes are freaking awesome. And the guys that play them, they know what they are doing. Anyway, enough of that. It's raining in Seattle. Isn't it always raining in Seattle? Okay, I think I've wandered around enough here. Now let's get to the cylinder head competition. As of now, I've got 12 entries, so that's now too many. So I've got to whittle those down. But when I was watching one of Eric Weingartner's cam shootout deals, I suddenly realized that I hadn't talked about an entry fee. Now, that's my bad. I hate that statement. My fault. I've got no one to blame but myself. Now, I don't want to make this look like it's a money-making scam or anything like that, but what I do need to do is to charge something so that we can make this a competition well worth entering on the competitor's part, because we don't want anyone that could end up as an also ran or I'll give this a try. It looks interesting. I need them to have sweat in it and money. Now, I would like the guys who've entered, all 12 of you, to give me what, since it was my mistake in forgetting what I was doing, to give me an amount you think is fair and square. The next thing that I now need to do is to talk to anybody who watches the channel and see if they will put up some cash for first and second spot. Right? I know I'm trying to organize a pair of cylinder heads, but there's nothing like some cash as well. If you support the channel, if you support my efforts, if you support your fellow speedsters, then please donate something, right? What I want you to do is donate it to a source that keeps control of it, but we'll deal with that later. Anyway, let's start hearing some comments on what you think a good entry fee would be. And remember, I'm going to have 8 cylinder heads to check industriously. Now, okay, I'm retired. I don't expect to make a fortune per hour, but I do expect to cover my expenses, and that I figure that doing a cylinder head and flow testing it in the way I do, it's going to take about an hour and a half, 2 hours each cylinder head. So if I've got 8 cylinder heads to flow test here, that's getting on. It's going to be 18, 20 hours of work. So I need to cover my time to at least some extent there. Now, apart from that, I've got all the organization to do. Now, what I want to do with the prize money is when you donate something, I'm going to do the same that Eric did. I'm going to, how shall I say, run this on the same rails as he did, same guidelines, right? The money for prize money, half will go to prize money and half will go to me for organizing. Because look, I've got people to phone up, people to organize by getting them to do this, that, and the other. So it's good for me to get something, right? If you could put it just there, my dear, thank you very much. Some physical sustenance, thank goodness for that. Oh, that was good. Let's I've just had some cough medicine that's supposed to stop runny noses and things like that. It's working pretty good, but boy, it sure has dried me out. I think that's the reason. Anyway, I'm not hearing too many on how much I should charge here. Oh, just got a message from Andy there. He says, howdy, not sure I have to charge. Thanks for watching. That's to all you guys, right? I have no idea how many are watching at the moment. Oh, yeah, okay, we're coming up. Right, so now then, at this point, I'm going to start taking, oh, somebody has said, now, Stephen, a member, entry fee, 200. I'll see how that goes, right? What I need is people who are going to enter to say what they think was a reasonable entry fee. Anyway. Okay, let's have a look at this then. Hi, David. I had to disassemble the engine in my Honda due to a seized bearing. Since the engine is in pieces, I figure I'd do my first head porting. Your knowledge is very helpful. Ah, right. Well, thank you, Sane. I don't know what the CZKI stands for, but thank you very much. I'm hopeful that it is. Now, one of the things I've noticed about Honda engines is none of them are bad. They're all good, better, or even better yet. So you're working with a good piece of equipment there. I did, or I helped one of my very impressive students who was something like 65, and he was racing a Honda. I can't remember what displacement it was now. I think it was a 500, and he was doing very well. And what he was telling me was, even against the 20-year-olds, he was doing very well up there, competing for, competing for podium positions. And he said 5 more horsepower might make the difference. So we looked at his head to see what we could do with it. Now, I actually did a feature on this. We actually managed to improve that Honda head. And he stayed after time from the seminars, and we actually set a route for him to go on tweaking that cylinder head. He got his own flow bench, as I remember, and he left here with something like about 5% more power potential. Never did hear from him again. I guess he's too busy doing that flow testing. But anyway, was a hell of a good cylinder head to start with, and we changed it to even better. But more on that. Now then, Leo, holy crap. David, haven't seen you since an engine seminar at the University of Colorado in Denver in about 1994. Oh my God, I was a youngster then. That's 30 years ago. Gorkamutmork commented, no sound. I don't know what to tell you. Everybody else has sound. Can you read lips? Floyd's garage seems a bit light for the work. Holy crap, David. right? Well, sorry. The Porsche Flat 6. Now, actually, Alan, you're not off topic. You're on cylinder heads, and this is your time, i.e., people who are watching. Now, the Flat 6 cylinder head, Porsche did a very amateurish job there. With one of my students, who was a Porsche fan, we took a Porsche cylinder head and we transformed it just by changing their casting. Just by changing their casting, they can get better emissions, better torque, better horsepower, and more fuel economy. And obviously, they don't know how to do that. It's all something that's can be done within the casting parameters they have. They don't need to change valve positions. It would how shall I say, put off the need for having dual spark plugs, although I would keep them. But that Porsche cylinder head on the engine I think you're talking about, and on very many of their heads, 2-valve heads, is not very good. And I know that's going to surprise a lot of you. Let's get on with the next one. I was at the seminar in Swansea, 9147. Oh, I remember you. You were the guy with a nose, 2 ears, and 2 eyes, right? And a mouth. Right. That was it. I also spoke with you at the NEC Autosport show, right? That must be a while back now, because I've been not in too good a mood to do traveling. Hang on. Floyd's garage, probably around 1.5 to 2 hours per head. Yeah, that could well be. I estimated something like that. Thank you for that comment there. Rebooting might be the thing, Steve. Now, cylinder heads, right? I had planned on doing some diagrams which physically show the importance of cylinder head, so you can look at it and say, my God, what we're trying to do is impossible. When you scale it out, the size of the air, the size of the fuel, and the size of the valve, right? And compare, when I say the size of the air, the cubic volume of the volume of air drawn as a cube at 15 psi or 14.7, then the size, a cube, the size of the fuel that goes in, and then the size of the valves. You look at it and your first reaction is getting that much air through those valves is not possible. And yet, when you get good at porting cylinder heads, that's where you get. So that's something I'm going to save for another. I'm going to need my whiteboard behind me, and it will give you an idea of why cylinder heads are so important. In essence, we've got a situation here where the poppet valve is not the best thing for passing a flow of air from one side of itself to the other. But anyway, I think you'll all understand that. Okay, Steve. Yes, I was on the Mountune stand at the NEC. NEC, I've forgotten what that is. National Engine, whatever. No. Yep, good old Dave. Need to get in touch with him. Any more questions? Oh, Andrew. Yeah, the Hillman Avenger cylinder head flow improvements that surprise other race teams. Yes, right. The factory used my cylinder heads on the 2 seasons after I raced. That's 75 and 76. It didn't surprise them because they didn't know about it, right? The factory also used my carburetor setup. We had no option but to use the Webers, and they were 40 side draft Webers, and had a big modification program for those, because those side draft Webers tend to deliver fairly large droplets of fuel. And I mean, when we made a plexiglass tube and flow tested, right, flash photography revealed droplets big. I mean, probably a millimeter in diameter. 40 thousandths, way too big. I mean, that's the size of 4 grains of sand. The mixture shouldn't even be this. The droplets shouldn't even be the size of a grain of sand. So we worked on those. I say we. I think the rest of my crew was working industriously on suspension and body, right? That's Hugh and Colin. But by a complete change in booster design, I mean a complete change, right? I made the boosters up out of boosters from another carburetor. I also made new Venturis, which move the position of the minor diameter down slightly. I say down, that's down towards the butterfly, or what, it could be that way if you're facing the back of the car. Changed all the fuel, modified all the fuel passages, changed the booster, not the booster design, the emulsion tube design, and a few other things. And the fuel, when we tested that, came out as a fog. I think each droplet was biggest was probably 7 or 8 thousandths. Most of it was less than 5 thousandths diameter. The how did I measure this? Well, we could do that. The manifold was a square block, about that diameter, right? And the carburetor bolted on here, and a flash gun here. One flash guns like this aimed in. Had to filter that down because it overpowered. But when I took a picture in through this side with a regular camera, the lighting was such that it would only take a picture with the flash firing. So it didn't matter if it was a slow exposure. As far as the film was concerned, the light it got was 1/2000th of a second from the flash gun. And you could see the particles literally at 0.002 of a second. They didn't move very much. So since they moved that way, I knew the diameter of them would be whatever the height was this way. And we knew how big the block was. So when we enlarged it all, we could tell how big the droplet was pretty accurately. So that's how I gained the size of the droplets. Now that technique is pretty good. Here's something a lot of you can try. When you're when you've got your engine on the dyno, take a flash gun picture straight down the barrels. Turn the lights off when you do it. Boom. You will instantly see whether you have big droplets or small droplets that's when the engine's wide open, right? So if it's big droplets coming out, one of the things you need to look at is the ratio of your air corrector to your main jet, right? You can get the right mixture with a multitude of jet sizes and a multitude of air corrector sizes, and then trim it with the emulsion passage, the emulsion tube passage. Now, here's the thing: bigger main jet, bigger air corrector, right? Smaller main jet, smaller air corrector. And at some point, they will both give the same fuel air ratio. So the question is whether it's like this or this. So you need to trim it with the emulsion tube to get it to that, if that's what's needed. I'm doing this like example wise. Now let's see, what else can we do? Oh, by the way, that small droplet size made so much difference. It was unreal. Over the best setup the Weber engineers could get, it was an instant 6 horsepower before we recalibrated it. And it turned out finally somewhere close to 8 horsepower. Doesn't sound much, but we're talking about a 1600cc engine here that's got to be stock, right? They were rated at factory rated these stock, absolutely out of the box, so to speak, at I think it was about 105 horsepower. Our blueprinted ones with the parts that were allowed and the things we were allowed to do on our engines, we were looking at 146, I think was the highest we got during the season. But toward the end of the season, we got to 154. Never raced it at that, which is a shame because the factory dominated with the specs I'd given them before. And the third year, they were finally beaten. But they could have won if they'd have used my specs from the very last ones, the 154 horsepower ones. They would have won. But never mind, that's time gone now. Let's see what we've got over here for my friends. Changed from a 2V to a 4V, and it made it worse by a lot. Floyd, I assume Floyd's your worst name. Can you be a bit more explicit on that? I'd like to know what engine they changed and what it was they changed. Well, obviously the cylinder head, but from what to what and why you think that was the reason. Put that up there. Answer: I am not an expert, but I purchased one and found that the quality control was all a bit off. Junk, I mean. Stephen, what was it? You started off in the middle of a sentence. Bear with me. I'm not a mind reader, right? What was it you started off with? Now, Andrew, how far are the pistons in the hole on that 400? Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know, I don't know if this is dead by any means, but so many times I hear people say, well, I'm going to put a blower on my 11-to-1 engine, but I'll lower the compression by skimming the tops of the pistons so that it's a lower compression. Worst thing to do. Absolutely the worst. A quick example here. I was great friends with Jerry Magnuson, the designer of the Magnacharger range of Magnachargers. Jerry was probably one of the best supercharger, positive displacement superchargers that we see in the 20th century. Right? Got to keep saying right. I've got to stop doing that. The supercharger that is marketed by, God, I've forgotten. They make the blowers for Mercedes, and they made them for Pontiac and all that. That is Jerry's design. Oh, and Ford. It is a very effective blower. Whilst you're cruising, it has the parasitic drag of an alternator that's generating no electricity. That's how efficient it is. The effect on mileage is so small that, well, it might be 1/10 of a mile per gallon. When you need boost, it will give you a very good boost at very efficient pressure ratios. Now, here's the thing. On a general drive around deal, this supercharger is as effective or as efficient as a well set up turbocharger. The one aspect that's in its favor is, doesn't matter how hard you try, you can't have turbo lag with it, right? The boost is there as you push the throttle down, so the boost matches the throttle motion, right? If you want to talk about time, the boost arrives at less than 100th of a second after you touch the throttle. You're not going to see 100th of a second. Anyway, Jerry and I did an experiment, right? We were on the dyno. Oh, by the way, all of the initial supercharger testing in that on the Magnuson blower, about 90% of it was done on my dyno. Jerry was one of my first friends when I came over here in January of 1970. So I've known him since January of 1970. Great guy. We had some great times. But anyway, he had this engine, and it was nicely put together, but what he did was leave the piston down the bore, because so many engines would be like that. Now, as it happened, when we checked the amount down the bore, it was way on the big side. I'm quoting off the top of my head here. I think it was somewhere around about 61, 62,000. So with a 40 thousandths gasket, there was nearly 100 thousandths. Well, let's say the gasket compressed, but so that meant there was right around 100 thousandths gap. And we got the engine all up and running, jetted everything out, and did some pulls. God, that motor sounded nice. But it wasn't making the horsepower or the torque that Jerry had expected. And I said, well, look, it's stock. Piston down the bore, that's never a good thing. I know that I can put the piston up the bore on a stock motor and pick up 6, 8, even as much as 10 or 12 horsepower in some cases. And he says, yeah, but how far can we go? I said, let's see. Usually it becomes more detonation resistant the closer the quench gets. So engine came off. The deck was decked to where I normally do it for a normally aspirated engine, which is the piston about 5 out with the 40 thousandths head gasket. Now the compression went up by quite a bit. So we had this deal. We had to know where it could be a limitation on boost with the piston down the bore, and where it could be a limitation on boost with it up the bore, and what the difference in torque and horsepower was. Well, we ran the one that was 60 down the bore until we just heard it knock. And that was our plan to do it with. Well, we started that one up, ran it, my thoughts on what it would do were right. Torque went up. We ran, and here's the interesting thing. We ran the same boost that it did when it started to detonate before, and it didn't detonate. So the quench is important to suppress detonation. You lower the compression by putting the piston down the bore, and the whole thing gets more prone to detonation. Anyway, we put the piston up the bore, set everything on there, and that engine, it only had a short cam in it, by the way. It was about I think it was a 264 comp cam that we reckoned would be right for this kind of engine. The heads were ported. I think I did the porting on the heads a couple of months previous. Nothing special, just a nice cleaned up porting shot, and I matched the intake manifold. And anyway, we ended up with 625 horsepower, and with 8 pounds of boost, well over 600 foot-pounds of torque. And here's the nice thing. It idled like a watch. I mean, it would sit there and idle at about 650 RPM. Absolutely, totally steady. That was a beautiful engine, 350 cubic inch engine. So check out those Magnuson blowers. So that's a little point on Quench there. Now then, let's have a look and see where I've got some questions here. Dave and Andy, what would be our best method to donate the heads to the head challenge to help cover test time? Can you later do a video explaining different methods to donate that would best benefit you guys? Well, here's the deal. I'm going to talk to Andy about this because, to be honest, when it comes to organizing stuff like this, he's way better at it than I am. The bottom line is Andy's in his late 40s and he's sharp as a needle. I'm in my early 80s and I can lose track of things, right? So I'll have to talk to Andy on this, but he'll come up with something probably in the next few days. So if you remember, no, you're a subscriber, right? So I'll put this out on the general video. So anyway, now what does your name stand for? So, Drive, DRI, GO-BW. I can't even figure out what that might stand for. You ever get behind somebody with a fancy number plate that you look at and you try to figure out what it says? Now, I had a lady friend that I thought of her special number plate, and it was B-111S. No, B-III-S. Anybody think what that could be for, right? And let your imagination run wild. Okay, let's go on and see. Ever do any work on Type 1A air-cooled Volkswagens? Yes, I have a close association with that, and so does my eldest daughter. Dean Lowry. Now, if you're into Volkswagens, you've heard of the late Dean Lowry. Dean was a close friend of mine, right? Super neat guy. And his daughter, can't believe this, I've forgotten her name. She was a little cutie, and she was into Volkswagens big time. Her life revolved around her Volkswagen. Let me tell you a story about that. She had a 2.8 liter Volkswagen. She built that engine herself, right? She was totally capable of putting together a flat 4 VW race engine. She had a 2.8 litre engine, head ported by herself. On the dyno, it made somewhere around about 270 odd horsepower. Now, at the track, and sometimes not at the track, my eldest daughter, Samantha, and I think it was Carla. Yeah. Hung out together. And at the track, they helped each other work on whatever cars it was. With Samantha, it's usually only changing tires. But with Carla, it was changing the muffler and changing tires and several other things to get it ready for the track. Now, this one evening, pretty hot evening, this Volkswagen, which looked like a Volkswagen in about 30 different colors of primer, not 30, make that 25. It always looked like it was one step away from its first stage of rebuild from the scrapyard. It didn't go like that, right? It was pretty gutted inside. It didn't have any rear seats in it. Just had a roll cage. And anyway, it went at 10.6 at 100 and somewhere over 120 miles an hour. It might have been 128, right? That sounds might be too high. It was fast, won its class. On the way, now, part of it I didn't tell you, there was a gang of us, about 10, 12. After we'd raced, we all gathered at a 76 truck stop, which had an ice cream shop that was, well, it wasn't just ice cream. It was fancy, like cakes and donuts and all that stuff. Super. It was more like something you get in Italy. And we go there. Great coffee, great ice cream. Anyway, they turned up late for the drag strip. You say it took you a long time to get here. Here's the story. They got to a traffic light, ready to go. Two good-looking girls in this piece of doo-doo looking Volkswagen. Beside them pulls up a hopped-up Corvette. I mean, really hopped up. Could well be a mid-11-second Corvette. Guy looks around. It's a convertible, by the way. Looks around, sees two cute girls. Doesn't barely see the Volkswagen. It just sees what looks like a piece of junk. Bam, bam. Carla turns to, I hope I got her name right there, turns to Samantha, and she says, "Give me my purse, quick." And she gets out $100 bill, and she winds it up and fixes it to the window. And as it goes up, she says, $100, I beat you to the next lights. Winds it up. Now, any of you who've watched a Volkswagen leave the line, on slicks, this Volkswagen pulls wheelies in second gear, right? The first 50 yards, the wheels maybe bounce on the road once. This very naive Corvette guy thinks it's a piece of junk Volkswagen. Well, she's put her street tires on, so she has to be a bit careful on how she leaves the line. By the time they reach the next lights, she could see him in the mirror, right? And you know what? I give the guy credit. Pulls him over to the side, gives him $100 and $10 bills. He's just shaking his head like this. What the hell's under the hood on this? It's a Volkswagen engine. And then they left. When they got to the restaurant, it was, "Hey, it's all on us." That was good. Anyway, what have we got here? I just wanted to Dr. Go, as in Dr. Go, but YouTube said it was taken and gave me my crazy name code. Right, it is a crazy name. Dr. Go, right. Didn't see that. Okay, let's have a look. Large journal 327 crank in a 400 is stronger off the line or corner than a 350. Large journal 327 crank in a 400. How are we coming up with the displacement on that, Jimmy? 327 stroke crank in a foot. Gotcha. That's a 348 cubic inch engine, I think it is. In other words, it's a short stroke NASCAR style engine. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but it could well be. It might pick up its R's quicker. I don't know if the difference is due solely to the stroke, though. Hi, David. What would the best mods for a turbo Buick tooth? Oh, I did some head work. I think I did a brief amount of head work from Mike Thermos at NOS, and I think he's got it. He bought a brand new Buick 231. Nice car. Went out for riding it a couple of times with the turbo opt. That's a car that I would pay today's price for a car like that now, right? To heck with this, what is now old-fashioned styling. It looked nice then. Still looks nice, dated, but boy, do they go. Anyway, yes, I did a pair of what were at the time all or nothing heads for a friend of mine up in New York. And he was big into turbo Buicks, and he said they putting those on just made a huge a difference. GM Mike, GM Mickles, sorry about the lack of sound, but you might want to try rebooting it. Everybody else is getting the sound, so that's 99%. So try that first. Floyd's garage. Oil broke the high after hours. Now, come on, Mr. Floyd. Your typing skills need to be speeded up, improved, and spend longer on it. You've got a window here where you can tell your story, and it's a bit disjointed, and I really do want to know what it is. Andrew, without knowing the actual combination, it's a pretty safe bet that the cam lobe center line angle is too narrow and the intake closing point is wrong. Canted valves flow different to inline valves. We're talking about the cylinder head swap. Yes, I still don't know what engine it is or what heads changed for what. Quench, approximately 35 thousandths, 406 cubic inches, 509 block. That's from Earlaw. No, I don't know what it. Remember, guys, when you post up something on the this business of not being a mirror image gets me confused, right? So when you post something up and I ask a question on it, there's usually 7 or 8 other people answering. So what happens is I've forgotten what we were talking about when I get to yours. So be precise and say whatever it was. Helps me. Help me answer your questions as well. Oil broke the high after hours. Now this is a good puzzle. Oil future prices went up over 3%, expecting oil to go up around 130. Yeah, okay. I don't want to get political here, but I do want to say one thing about, and it concerns people's lives. When it comes to people's or the lives of anything, I'm a bit of a softie. I find a spider, I catch it, and I put it out. I don't kill it. The only insects that I kill are those which are potentially dangerous to human beings. Now, a spider could be dangerous, but in essence, usually they kill predators that are dangerous to us. So that's my attitude there. So how does that relate to fuel prices? You make a comment here. I want you to think about this. We have people complaining about fuel going up a gallon. We have people complaining about fuel going up by $1 a gallon. Right? It's going up by now. We could have avoided that if we hadn't gone to Iran and started a war killing off bad people. Right? But those bad people are killing people without us. So here's the deal. Ask yourself this. If I give you the opportunity to have $1 off every gallon, but here's a revolver, to get that dollar discount, you have to go and shoot that Iranian guy there. That's what it's like. Would you rather see the death of a human being and get $1 off your fuel, which is very self-centered, very unconcerned about other people's position? Here's my position on it. I would like to be a world policeman. You commit a crime, you pay the price, period. Especially if you're a mass murderer. They're not just serial killers, these guys. They're mass murderers. I don't know what the count is right now, but the regime in Iran has killed over 30,000 people. Every one of those persons has a mom that loved them and a dad, right? I remember when I lost my daughter, it was like having my heart ripped out. The pain was unbelievable. Would I wish that on anyone? Hell no. Of course, our soldiers may get killed. I realize that. They signed up to protect other people. They signed up to protect you and me. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, God bless our military. Every one of them gets my vote, my sympathy, my thoughts. I really do go up and say to people in uniform, thank you for your service, and I mean it. I ran into a lady, colored lady, that had a military shirt on, right, and she was sitting down. And I said, thank you for your service, right? I said, how long did you serve? Oh, she said, I served in, I forget which one it was now. Iraq, Afghanistan. Anyway, when she got up and walked away, she only had one leg, and she had to come by me. I got up and I gave her a hug, and I said, you are really special. And she was. She sacrificed a leg. Got to think to yourself, she's prepared to sacrifice a leg. Are you prepared to spend an extra $1 for a gallon of fuel? Think about this. Think about other people. Okay, I've had my rant, right? No more politics here. But I felt I had to say that. Okay, not sure. 723. Okay, not sure I'm going to answer your question here. When porting 4-valve chambers, do you ever undercut the cylinder wall on the intake side when deshrouding? Yes, but on all the heads I've done, there is such a limited amount that you can actually deshroud any further than a little bit into the actual bore itself. There's some heads that we did that we could take the lip on the top of the bore. When we deshrouded the head, the lip was exposed, and we managed to take that up as 20 thousandths, that's all. But it helped. Deshrouding the short side turn is actually quite a complex thing. If you deshroud it too much, you may increase the flow on the short side, just in the lower and mid ranges, and sacrifice it on the long side. So be careful about that. Right. Does your class on small block Ford porting and combustion chamber modes, is this only for professional porters? You know, I've had a lot of people ask me about that. Unbelievable. The problem is I cannot predict when my good days and bad days are. I may have a good day, go to sleep, have a fine night's sleep, and then get up and find I've pulled the muscle in my arthritis in my back has started playing up, and I'm in no mood to give people lessons. Lots of things crop up like that. Either that, I didn't get to sleep. So although I'm able to do the seminars, I can't guarantee that I can do them on the appointed day. So I've got to think of a way around that. And I might try doing it via Zoom so that the guys stay at home. And if I have to call a day off, they can go to work. But that's still, yeah, again, I'm going to talk to Andy about this because it's going to involve his helping out. And what with his new projects, some new projects, right? This new one that he's got going on, I'm kind of sad in one respect, and I'm kind of overwhelmed in another. He's got to do something which I don't want him to do, but in doing so, it enables him to do something else, which I can't wait for him to get done. We'll get to that. I'll let Andy tell you about that. That's his news. Okay, Earlaw, 7096. Anyone here under the Weber fully adjustable metering blocks on primary and secondary on Holly for better atomization, fuel mix, positive or negative? Here's the deal, right? The Weber plates for the Holly carburetor were great working pieces. But you had to know how to set up a Weber to set these up. You could have better fuel atomization or worse. Now, another one of these deals, I did a lot of the dyno testing for Weber America when they initially introduced these plates. What we found was that with the Weber emulsion tubes and jets and that, you had a great deal of control of whether the fuel came out in big lumps or small lumps. And both could deliver the right mixture or more or less so. So it's not a question of not a question of how well the booster works, although that's an influential thing. And by the way, we found a step dogleg was the best overall. That's one that consistently made the most power. But it's a question of, as I mentioned earlier, you can have multiple main jets and air correctors to get the same mixture. It's just that it can be big droplets or small droplets. So the way we found to calibrate them best was to start off with a big air corrector and then see if you could get the mixture right with the quick brain fade, with the emulsion tube and the main jet. And that's the way we went. Now, normally with regular Holy carburetors, we tend to start off with what we guessed was right and what was in there for the emulsion tube, and then calibrate it by the jets. Then look at the brake-specific brake-specific fuel consumption and see how that's doing, and then try a bigger air corrector and a smaller main jet. No, a bigger air corrector and a bigger main jet, and see if getting the mixture finer works. And very often it does. The air corrector doesn't get enough attention with carburetor calibration, right? Next time you're on the dyno and you get the mixture right and you say, let's alter the main jet, doesn't make any difference. Try going up on the air corrector and see what it does to the brake-specific fuel consumption. If it gets better, it wanted that finer droplet size. If it gets worse, you're okay on your main jet. So that's a pointer there. Now, yes, Stephen, thank you for agreeing. Right, you just scored points. You are pardoned, Earlaw, for whatever you do. Well, almost. Thanks for the inspirational comment on this thing we call war. Let us hope. You know, this is what sometimes people overlook, is it doesn't matter which side you're voting for, everybody loses. There's so many parents that lose children. And if they love their parents, it is a fate worse than death itself, literally. Anyone who's been close to a child that they've lost will totally understand what I'm saying. There's no win anywhere, not here. But further down the road, there may be gains for people that are yet to come. And that's how we have to hope that after a war ends, that's the way it is. I hope. Please, gentlemen, no politics. No, I'm not. Jimmy, I'm trying not to talk politics here. This is not politics. I'm trying to talk about the lives of people and realizing a very positive outlook and a situation where they don't lose their lives. It doesn't matter what my politics are. I don't like people dying, right? Nothing. I don't like them dying. I take it very personally. But I agree, no politics. But what I spoke about there, think about it, wasn't really politics. It was a wish for all mankind. Ah, that's interesting. Earlaw, what's your real name? Put your real name down, right? You're a member. I need to know. It looks like you're a member. Please put your name down so that I can address you by name. You know, Ken, you've got a very good question there. Sorry about the delay there. I'm reading Ken Mole 825 question. He's talking about rotating and reciprocating mass. If you want a smooth running engine, let me bring something up here. Since I'm building my crate motor over there, the final use of it is to be a smooth running engine in a Model A Ford. We're not looking for huge amounts of horsepower, just something with a really strong torque curve, about 300-ish horsepower, to power a 2,200-pound sedan. Well, it's not going to be a racer. It is going to be a true person delivery vehicle, i.e. cruise around town so that you almost can't hear it, and cruise on the freeway at 70 miles an hour. All of this in absolute comfort. The only thing you'll notice from the outside is that it'll have bigger wheels and tires on it. Well, not necessarily bigger wheels, smaller wheels, bigger tires. And it may look a little lower and a little sleeker, but it's not a show vehicle in terms of being a hot rod style Model T chopped and things like that. We're trying to keep this, we bought it in near stock condition, and we're trying to keep it in near stock condition, except it'll have this motor. Now, we want it to run smooth. Now, the thing is, Ken has talked about the weight. Well, here's the deal. As far as making an engine idle smoothly, weight in the flywheel and the crankshaft is good. Where it lets the situation down is if you want to accelerate. The engine has not only got to accelerate the car, but also the weight of the flywheel and all the rotating parts in the engine. Now you might say, yeah, but that's only a few pounds compared with 1,000. But it has to accelerate those few pounds much faster, at a much faster rate than the car. So the weight acts, how I need to express this. The weight acts in a way as if it's a lot more. For instance, we can have a situation where taking 30 pounds off the rotating mass, that's clutch, flywheel, and crankshaft, is equal to dropping 350, 400 pounds off the weight of the car in first gear. In second gear, it's less. In third gear, it's less yet. In fourth gear, less. And at steady speed, it doesn't matter what the weight is. Now, let me talk about dampers here, right? Sometimes the best damper for a motor under accelerating conditions is bigger than you might expect. For instance, a stock 350 Chevy, the 400 damper will give you more power and will run smoother, and it will damp out vibrations better. So that's a time when big, heavy actually works better. Now, if we're going to get to dampers that you want to achieve more than just extra power, the Vibratech fluid damper. Now, I don't know about anybody else's, but the Vibratech fluid damper, the big one, not only will give you more power than the stock 350 damper on a 350, but at idle, it makes the engine so much smoother in terms of damping out oscillations from the firing. You can feel it on the throttle handle of a Superflow, right? That's a big bunch. Why can you feel it? Well, the throttle is connected hydraulically. So it is actually like the clutching hold of the engine. When I put my hand on the throttle, on the first time I tested one of these dampers, I could tell that it was smoother. It wasn't a question, oh, it feels smoother. Put it on and I thought, Jesus, it's much smoother. And it was. Since we were testing dampers, that damper went on and off several times. I could tell you whether it had a rubber damper on or a fluid damper on with my eyes closed, just by grabbing hold of that lever. So if you're looking to build a hot rod, but you want it to be responsive, but you want it to damp out those harsh vibrations that occur at idle, fluid damper, right? Would I recommend it as a race damper? To tell you the truth, I can't do that because I've never used it as a race damper. I know the Cup car guys used it a lot, and until they found out what was going on, they were breaking crank snouts. And the thing is the fluid damper does not balance oscillations which go up and down this way, only this way. And that issue is not a deal until you get to high RPM. So they were breaking snouts and had to put on big block snouts and rubber dampers, such as the ones put out by ATI, right? Anyway, enough on that. Can I run? Okay, I'm Dave Italy. Can I run an original cast iron intake on a small block Ford, say 60s version, early 60s version, early 70s, or is that just plainly better to paint an aluminum one for stealthiness, but does it lack vintage vibe? That's a difficult question. I'll tell you why. The aftermarkets, maybe it's because I'm used to seeing them. I can instantly spot one from a stock manifold, right? The original cast iron ones leave a lot to be desired, a lot. So if I were you, here's what I would do. There's a company, and I've forgotten their name. They specialize in all stuff you need to restore cars. Big company. I've dealt with them years ago, not since my brain surgery, but years ago. Great company. Somebody will think of the name in a minute. Now, they make a cast iron paint. If you paint an aluminum manifold with this cast iron paint and paint the rest of the engine with it, it'll look like you've got an all cast iron engine. And I can tell you now that the Ford Performer RPM for a small block Ford or a small block Chevy, they are pretty big increase in torque and horsepower, right? I thoroughly recommend, if you're not going to touch the manifold and you're going to use an off-the-shelf manifold, be it stock or aftermarket, you cannot beat those Edelbrock two-plane manifolds, either of those two. What was I going to say then? Make sure you match them up. I'm going to show how you match up a Chevy one. Matching up the Ford one is equally important. So, yes, that's what I would do there. Now, hopefully that answers your question there. Okay, on to the next one. Chevy 400 balancer is externally balanced. It will not work on 350. I forgot that. You have to put it into a lathe and turn out the inside where it's got that. Then it will work, right? Sorry, I should have said that. So you've got to have a lathe. I have. If you don't have a lathe and you're working on engines, just go to some of these companies that make lathes for universities. You know, they're cheap, relatively cheap, because they know the university kids don't know what they're doing. They're learning, and they will damage them, and they will need replacing. It's better to damage a lower cost lathe than it is a toolmaker's lathe. So that's the thing there. Yep, turn that back out. I ran lots of fluid dampers. Serve it. Oh, Charlie. Yes, Charlie, thank you for... can we have a little bit more of your thoughts on dampers, please? I think I've spoken to you about this before, but I think you've run way more fluid dampers than I have. And your thoughts on this, if you've got any, would be good. So splash those out for me. Olivier, is that Roy Olivier? 1301, yeah. You preempted my response there. So yeah. Hello, Charlie S. I still really appreciate your videos. Right. Right. Oh, Charlie says he's not a fan of rubber elastomer balancers. Right. The thing is they are cheap to make. Right. They are cheap to make, and they can be made to be very effective, but they will cost a lot more. There is a couple of companies out there making very effective ones. As an American company, they make the jigs and fixtures and that. Can't remember their name. And there's an Australian one that's very good as well. I forget who sells that over here, but they're a Ford fan. Sorry, they're a Ford dealership, so that's good. Yes, external balance on a 400 engine. Yep, they're good for wiping out that minor. You'll be able to put a big one of these onto a 350 and stand a pencil on the air thing with it running at 1,000 RPM. Right. If you've got it just right and the balance just right, it'll stay there. Right, let's go on down the list. Oh, that's interesting, Charlie. That follows my thought. Now you've probably done. This is Charlie. I'm responding to his deal here. If you need to run a rubber balancer, run the biggest you can find. That's pretty much the case. I don't think that the big rubber balancer the biggest 400 balancer, ever runs into a torsional problem at some RPM that's damaging to the crank and rotating assembly anywhere in the RPM range that you and I are likely to use for up to a high performance street motor. So I concur with what Charlie said there, and you know, knowing how many engines Charlie gets involved with, I'm inclined to go along with what he's saying. Now then, yes, Brian of Salter Racing Engines, the pirate of NASCAR tech. Hi, Brian, how are you doing? You know that question you asked me the other day? So many people don't know why I call you the tech pirate. It's quite simple. You were directly involved in NASCAR stuff for so long that you learned pretty much everything that NASCAR engine tech had to offer. Now you're taking that tech, putting it in your own channel. In other words, stealing is not anywhere near correct. You're taking that tech like a pirate and putting it into your own channel, right? So anyway, anyone who hasn't signed up for Brian Salter's channel, you're missing out on the experience brought about by decades of NASCAR tech work. So sign up on Brian's channel. I get to watch almost all of Brian's channels, and the only thing I can say is he looks pretty good for his age. I mean, he's about 120. He was born before Jesus was. I know you're going to have a comment on that, Brian, aren't you? Right. Patrick M. I've only witnessed one damper come apart at the drag strip. It was on the line just before launch, and it was a crazy experience. Shrapnel went everywhere. Patrick, have you still got your toes? Right. bits that when they explode, they seem to be able to go around the engine as well. I've only seen one explosion of a damper, and at the time it was being turned at probably about 9,500, and it exploded just as the car left the line. And because the car was accelerating hard forward at about 1G, the shrapnel went round the engine like this, and there's actually holes in the firewall from it. I don't know how many RPM the engine reached after that thing went, but it was probably 11. Now, it's interesting to see how rubber dampers were banned from NASCAR, right? A damper blew up and one of the parts hit, this is as I remember it, one of the pieces of shrapnel hit a spectator. It was as I understand it, it was quite a nasty wound, not life-threatening, but probably very painful. Anyway, at that point, NASCAR banned dampers, rubber dampers. And so everybody started using a hub. Some people were before because they believed the reduction in momentum, inertial momentum, actually allowed the engine to rev faster. Well, at the first step, theoretically, it did. But the second step, it doesn't. What does a damper do? It damps out the torsional vibrations, right? Slowed down, the crankshaft is doing this as it goes around. So the chain is doing this as it goes around. This is superimposed on the motion over it. So the camshaft is doing this as it goes around. Now, way back when all this damper stuff got going, I asked Harvey Crane, what effect that torsional vibration has on the mathematics that go into calculating the smooth profiles. He said, I might as well give up, not spend any time doing it. It totally eradicates a good profile. He said, it won't matter whose, oh, my eyes are running. It won't matter whose profile you've got. It will destroy any good dynamics. Anything. Let me put that into simple terms. One of Billy Godbold's latest cam profiles, and he's got a new one out that Comp are doing that looks very promising. It won't work. It'd be all a waste of time, him spending the time doing that, if you don't have a good crank damper on. So here's the thing. I did some experiments with crank dampers with Vibratech. They funded the whole thing, engine built, the whole lot. And also, being familiar with the Cosworth engines, I knew that the DFV, the Formula One engine back in the 70s, used a fluid damper. Now, the thing is, the Cosworth engine was a flat plane crank. So it had twice the vibrations, or getting on that way, of a four-cylinder engine. It's like having two four-cylinder engines together. So you've got the secondary out of balance of this engine plus the secondary out of balance of that engine 90 degrees later. So it vibrates. I mean, when they first came out, drivers would say, well, you know, with two races, they'll disassemble themselves. Right? Not true. So what they needed was a damper, which was, back then it cost a lot of money to do crank damper analyzations. So they got in touch with a British damper company. Again, forgotten the, excuse me guys, but my eyes are watering badly here. They got in touch with a British damper company, and they made them a damper based on calculations of what these engines would do. But the nice thing about a fluid damper is that it is torsionally active at all engine speeds. It doesn't matter. You don't have to tune it in. It's self-tuning. So they slapped one of these on. I've never heard of a, excuse me, never heard of a Cosworth crankshaft failing from lack of torsional vibration damping. Now, now what's this here law? David and Salter Racing, yay. Don't forget Smokey Yunick. Hey, never forget that guy, right? If you thought he was a smart guy, but I knew him a bit more personally than most people, you have no idea. He was, yes, he was very smart, but there's a lot more to him than that. He was, underneath all that bravado, there was a very nice human being, right? Unfortunately, I didn't take as much, I didn't use the chance of his company as much as I could, because I always thought, well, another day. And then suddenly he's dead. Did not go down well with me whatsoever, right? And I still think about Smokey to this day. I know his daughter pretty well, and she follows Smokey. Just a wonderful character. Anyway, back to work here. So this damper, I don't know how much bigger is better actually works here. I know what we do with our dampers now. If we've got a strange engine, we get our guy from ATI down with all of his gear, and he measures what's needed, and it works. So these days you've got, remember the other company in the States here that makes dampers, BHJ, right? You've got two options, ATI, BHJ. It's BHJ, I'm especially aware of how well their dampers work on engines like cup car engines, right? So beware, that's another one of your choices. What else? Let me look and see what we're doing down here. Would love to join the head porting challenge. However, due to limited time, I'm focused on my Pontiac heads, looking at investing in the Performance Trends Easy Flow system. You mean, now, Mr. Judge, are you talking about their flow bench setup? So I did a test on that, right, against two other benches. And I think that I did a video on it way back. It's about number 20 or something. And I did a story in Dick Berggren's Circle Track magazine years ago. Amazingly accurate, right? It duplicated the results we had from way more expensive benches. So, hey, go for it. I think external bands and internal bands tend to crack 8.2 Fords that have high. Oh, yeah. Charlie, yes. That's a story in itself. Charlie's just put a post up there. I think external balance and internal harmonics tend to crack 8.2 Fords that have high output. Yeah, that's part of the block cracking is due to harmonics, not overall strength. But that's another story right there. Oh, yeah, yeah. Ken, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Ken Mole, whatever, 825. Yeah, my good friend Denny Wyckoff in Tucson. I think it was him, but he had a flywheel explode. And he is still wondering to this day, how it didn't take at least one of his feet off. it virtually severed the pedals by his feet. How much it missed them by might have been only a few thousandths, but it nearly sawed the car in half. Right, that was while he was doing a launch with a 4-speed where he literally tacked the motor to the red line, maybe to dump the clutch. Boom. So armored bell housing, absolute definite. Yeah, Brian's made a comment there to judge me not. So take a look at that. Oh, James Miller. BHJ has stopped making torque plates and machining fixtures. I don't know about their dampers, but I guess they've stopped making them too. Now that could be that our guy there has just got to retiring age, because I believe that he's older than I am. So if the company shut down, it may be because he's just got so old. I'm feeling old. Anyway, he made some good stuff. Josh Homan. The pedals likely saved his feet. Yeah, you could well be right there. Let's go on and see what else I've got here. Oh, Mopar Joe, have you got that stuff for me yet? Right, I'm talking to Dr. Go. Yeah, Mopar Joe. I don't know if you're watching. Mopar Joe and I are going to get together for the cam that Daniel's going to do for this Mopar Joe cam shootout for a 540 cubic inch odd big block Mopar engine. So don't forget you owe me that intro so that I can see how we're going to do this. But on to the next one here. Let's see what we've got. My buzzing has a 64 Bonneville stock 455. Hey, you know, Bonneville's a harder track to deal with than it would seem. You're going in a straight line. All you got to do is put the foot to the floor. That's what it looks like. Guys, I've competed at Bonneville. Two things that I have come up with. One thing those who like Bonneville won't like. The other thing is those who like Bonneville will like. First, there is so much more to going fast at Bonneville than you think. Ultimately, it's aerodynamics and horsepower. Ultimately, it's just aerodynamics, right? We can have a situation whereby you pump up the horsepower by a considerable amount, and yet there's things that will conspire to not allow you to go as fast. First thing you have to deal with is you cannot make the vehicle as light as possible. If you're trying to go 400 miles an hour in a vehicle of weighing, say, 2 tons, you better have the aerodynamics so good that you don't end up just spinning the wheels if you've got the power to go that speed. So you've got to have weight in the vehicle to get the traction to get going to maybe the first 200 miles an hour. After that, you've got plenty of room to use aerodynamic downforce to get grip. The price of that is drag. So it's a balance there that's got to get right. Getting the horsepower, a drag race engine may not be quite reliable enough if it's something like a pro stock engine. So it has to be, you have to sacrifice something there. Turbo engines, they're a good way to go, right? They don't cost any extra drag. In fact, they can actually cut the drag if the vents are designed right, induction vents are designed right. If you're doing a near stock bodied car, we did that when I was living in Tucson. We did at the time we had the world's fastest V6 Buick. I think we went 212 miles an hour, stock body V6. Worked with Smokey Yunick on that. Now, the second thing is developing no, not the second thing. End of the first thing. Developing the car, dyno testing, that's all very exciting. But let me tell you, when you get to Bonneville, when you're used to road racing, Bonneville is the most boring racing to watch ever. You're standing 2 miles from your car and you watch it go by. Bonneville is so big to a single person that your car looks insignificant. It looks like an ant crawling along. I like to be close to the action, better yet, in the action. Driving in a straight line for me is hard. I can deal with drag racing because it's over so quickly and you're accelerating all the time. So you have that acceleration rush. But at Bonneville, you get in the car, in a sedan, once you've got to about 150, you're just gathering speed. Hell, I've done 200 miles an hour on a public road in England. That's over the speed limit, and I'm here, so they can't lock me up for doing it, because that was 30 years ago now. 1989. Anyway, enough on that. Salter Racing. Hey, David. Brian, did you see my question? Brian, I did not. I've got an idea. Do you know what? Let's get Brian live on the phone. Brian, I'm going to get you on the phone. Call on the business line. Are you ready? Write this down. 704-675-4447. I am now awaiting your call, and we will talk to the folks live. Okay, what was it? Bonneville is a big car. It's a big car. The 455 will do excellent. 455 going in my Le Mans should do quite well. Judge. Yes, I thought you meant you went to Bonneville. Never mind, I put that piece in about it. I had a Pontiac at Bonneville, 1981. Loved it, right? Beautiful car. I customized it, had 550 horsepower under the hood. It was a mid-11 car. Right, I have got Brian. Brian.
Hey, David.
Now, let's see if the audience can hear you.
Hello, everybody.
Right. Can you hear you?
I can hear me.
Right. Well, then probably everybody else can. Now, Brian, what was your question?
My question was, am I going to get an invite to send a cylinder head in your competition?
For you, yes, but you can't enter it. You can send one in to show what you can do, and that would be nice. We could use you and Eric as pacemakers.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, we can talk later. I don't want to tie up your show, but yeah, to figure out how to get my hands on one of the heads, and then go from there.
Well, that's right now. Somebody's going to have to drop out because I've got 12. I'm only taking 8, but I've got 12. But look,
That's great.
You've got plenty of time, and I would like to publicize to people that you also port heads, because you don't seem to get that over to them very often. right?
It's got more than I know what to do with, so I'm trying to stay lower key than I have been.
Well, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
guys,
cool.
let me give you a bit of advice. Don't go to Brian Salter for your work, right? He is so good, he's overloaded with work.
I'm just so slow. That's what it is, Dave.
Well, no, you're so particular. That's what it is. Anyway, start looking for a scrap head.
A scrap head.
Well, I've only booked down to get 2 heads. That's why we're going for 8 people. They'll each get 1/4 of a cylinder head each to work on, right? If I ask for any more than that, I'm going to get in somebody's bad books.
Okay.
But I would like, now, if you can't find one, find another cylinder head that starts off with smaller port CCs, and we'll just use it as an example.
Okay.
Right? Oh, and remind me to ask Stan about your program.
Yeah, I've been wanting to try it out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get onto that probably tomorrow, right? Anyway, okay, everything else is going all right then, Brian?
Yeah, good to see you back on here. You and I, neither one have made many videos lately. I've made a couple in the last week or two, but there's a pretty good dry spell. Just a lot going on, but I'm glad you're doing good. You look good. Well,
thank you. I'm really trying hard here. Earlier on today, I decided I was going to take the rest of the day off simply so I could get up and face this camera, right? It wasn't that I was hurting or anything. I was just so sleepy. So I had a good 3 hours sleep. Felt wonderful when I got up.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to the contest.
Oh, yeah. I've forgotten to say that. Let's tell them about, I think Andy might have told his lot, right? The engine shootout.
Yep.
Right? 9 entries, 3 for each Chrysler, Ford, and Chevy. Yep. Right? And basically, what's the rules? Are they 408s again?
Yeah, so it's 408 and single carburetor or EFI. Has to be like if it's a Ford 20-degree head, Chevrolet's 23, big block Dodge, or the 383 Dodge would be like an 18-degree 440 style.
And we've got 9. Guys.
And I'm the School of Automotive Machinists. We got some people from Canada. It's a pretty good group. They wouldn't let me in this year. Everybody's kicking me out of everything, Dave. But I'll be running the dyno. I'm actually looking forward to it.
I've already been told that. I've got to call Greg here tomorrow. He's on my list to call to try and tidy up the info I've got and let everybody know. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a live broadcast again like this. Guys, should I do that? A live broadcast sometime about the middle of the week? Put your answers up there. Right, I just do a 1 hour.
Let me tell everybody where they can find like specific information, so they'll have a heads up on all this. But
okay,
if they go to raceenginechallenge.com, and it's the hot street rules. Everything's there for you to see how the engines will be judged and laid out. We will be checking some stuff. I've already spoken to every one of the engine contestants, and we'll have a K-Tech Whistler. If anybody's wrong on compression, they know the valve lift rules. So it's all pretty clear. There'll be a couple big names there, and some other people who have competed in other tournaments that are just very talented. So it should be a lot of fun.
Well, it is fun, right? I plan on being there, obviously, and I think I've already said this. Anybody who turns up there, regardless, got one of my books, I will sign it, and it'll instantly be worth $25 more.
Yeah,
literally.
David and Andy, myself, Greg, the 9 contestants, and I'm sure there'll be even more people there. We'll all be there, and I know I'm gonna video it. We are planning on putting out some information to give the public, anybody interested. I'm probably going to try and set up a little biography page on everybody and their engine with actual dyno results. So that'll be available at some point.
Yeah. Quick question here, Brian. And I believe I've already asked this, but I can't remember what the answer was for sure. Are we having a barbecue thing there, a food thing? I think Greg or Andy mentioned that we would have a food truck there or something like that, so you can get hamburgers and whatever.
Oh, that sounds awesome to me. I don't know.
You can't confirm it then. Okay, let me ask you if you confirm another question, right? Are we? I heard that we were charging for people to actually go inside the dyno cell.
I don't know about that. I imagine the people, like each contestant, will be with me and Andy, setting their engine up, making sure everything's good to go. It's not a huge amount of space.
No, it isn't. That's a problem. We need to.
Yeah.
We need to.
But there is area outside for them to.
Yeah.
Converse with others and just hang out and ask questions.
Yeah. Well, I'll check up with Greg what he's got planned there. So, guys, note that we're not set up yet in terms of what we're going to do for spectators. Last time we did something like this, we had, I don't know, 40, 50 spectators. Can't get them in the dyno cell. About the most we can get in the dyno cell without everybody tripping over anybody whilst we're doing a pull is only 3-4 people at the most.
Yeah, I was going to say about 4.
But when we're setting stuff up, there's room for maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Brian, let me let you go. It's gone your bedtime, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You tell the wife. David. You tell the wife she's got to put you to bed now and make sure you go night-night, right?
She'll make me walk the plank.
Yeah. Okay. I will talk to you in the next few days. You take care.
You too.
All righty. Cheers. Well, I hope that was informative. Good guy, Brian. Managed to make me laugh when I'm down in the dumps. Anyway, okay, let's have a look and see. Josh Owen, that sounds good. Yeah, I like that. That sounds good. I have no idea what it was he's talking about, but thank you, Josh. Let's see. Valve seats, right? Yeah. The ultimate, underline ultimate, that's the ultimate stage of any port, how good the valve seats are. After what, and this is what Judge says, after watching your valve percentage formula video and may need a smaller intake valve, 2.11 intake, there's never any need for a smaller intake valve other than it won't fit, right? So I'm not sure how you're going to coming to that conclusion there, Judge, but maybe since you're a member, maybe we'll get on a phone call and do that. So think about that down the road. Okay, where are we going to go here? Hi, Dr. Go. I bet most home guys can't get the results that Charlie does. You might be right. I have always been a big valve guy. Well, that's totally understandable, Charlie, because that's what you should do. Why do people put smaller valves in? Well, because they don't need to have bigger in. Let me tell you something about factory engines, right? The engineers in the main do not decide how much horsepower the engines have to make, and nor do they have the decision to make the most that they possibly can. It's got nothing to do with them. How much horsepower goes into a car is 9 times out of 10 totally dictated by the PR guy, right? That's the PR guy, might not be, by the marketing department. They say to the engineering group at the start of a concept of a new car, here's a car we want. It's got to weigh no more than 3,000 pounds. We don't need any more than 200 horsepower for it. It's got to cost this much. It's got to look good. That's the outline. So when they reach 200 horsepower, if they've got a nice power curve that drives smoothly, drives nice, is flexible, they're done. Oh, and it's as cheap as it can be made. They're virtually done, right? 201 horsepower wasn't what was asked for. So when you pull the heads off and you find valves that are only 1.25 inches and there's room for 1.5 inches in there, why didn't they use 1.5 inches? Because they got the job done with the 1.25 inch valves that they got a stock of billions of, or they order billions of from a company that gives them dirt cheap. Why put a bigger valve in if a smaller one will do the job, if the engine makes enough torque? So they're not building the optimum engine by any means. If they were, I'd be out of a job. But they're not. So that's the way it stands. So bigger valves are always the way to go. Now, here's an instant. Back in 1972, I think it was, when the Cosworth BDA engine, the belt-driven, no, the BD engine series 1600 came out in the Escort. I had my Avenger, 1500 Avenger, tested with the same day as this Cosworth engine, Cosworth powered Escort. And guess what? My acceleration figures obliterated the Escort, and so did the speed. I say obliterated. It wasn't a small difference. I mean, my Avenger went 0 to 100 in 17 seconds, 2-valve, cast iron head, push rods, 1500 cc, 17 seconds to 100. The Escort was 23 seconds. That's 1600 cc, 4 valves per cylinder, right? With knowing that how Ford gave Cosworth money, a lot more development money than mine. And I remember one of the guys saying, boy, with the torque that your engine's got, I mean, you can't believe this thing pulls from, he said, I've been down to 800 in top gear and it still pulls away. I said, it'll pull from 400. Power curve is 400 to 8,000. He says, well, he said, obviously you've got to have small valves in it to make the torque at that low RPM. And I said, absolutely no. It has got the biggest valves that will fit in that cylinder. Those valves are within a 32nd of the cylinder wall. It's a fallacy. Big valves do not delete lower end torque. Big ports do, right? Big ports that are too big will delete torque everywhere. The question is getting the balance right between the valve and the ports area, right? Getting the seat right so that the seat flows a lot right off the seat. This business about, well, we don't want low lift flow. Well, if you don't want low lift flow, you're obviously not looking for the maximum output. And then somebody's going to say, well, low lift flow hurts power. Bullshit. You've got something else wrong. Sure, increase the low lift flow on a head and not check into other things like cam timing and lobe centerline angle, the chances are you'll make less power, right? Start to get those two other factors right, and you'll find you'll make more power. Ask yourself this: why do 4-valve engines make more power than 2-valve engines? You know, very often a good 2-valve engine can flow almost the same at peak lift as a 4-valve. But that 4-valve engine may make 50 to 100 horsepower more. Why? Because at 50 thousandths, it makes as much as 80% more flow. In other words, the valves look like that. With the 2-valve, look like they open like this, as far as the air is concerned. And the 4-valve, they open like that. How many cam grinders are trying to produce valve opening speeds that are the close to instantaneous as possible? All of them. Now, if you use a high flow at low lift, you are moving towards that flow available instantly. Anyway, that's as much as I'm going to do on stuff today. Now, it's 9 o'clock and I was going to broadcast to here. Let me leave you like this. I think if I get the information worth you knowing about, I might put something on Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. I will almost certainly do another Saturday broadcast. I want you to let me know on this in the notes how I do. Also, forgotten what it is. Guys, you're going to get a lot of this. Forgotten what it is. Brian, tell these guys that I don't know what I'm doing, please. Good live. Good night, guys. Charlie, thank you for posting, backing me up there. Broken Tool Garage, right? I know of you guys. Ken Mule, big valves until it almost hurts. Yep, that's right. Okay, well, pretty much good night to you all, and thank you for watching. Next time, I will see if I can be a little more prepared and do a better job here. Right? Hopefully, I've got Andy's backing next time, but if not, I'm sure he'll give me some pointers on this. So, good night, and I will talk to you guys down the road.